My name is Lakshmi Narayan, and I am here to speak with Sarah Salter Kelly. Sarah, what is your course called? And can you talk to me a little bit about what it is and who it's for?
Absolutely. It is an Earth Medicine Shamanic Apprenticeship program. And so it's for people who are interested in generating a foundational experience in connection with the land, in relationship with themselves, in relationship with their ancestors, really as a compass to direct awareness in life. And so it's the greater investigation of how do I be more aligned with this land, with this present moment, and in relationship. It's using the teachings of core shamanism as a foundation. So, working with the underworld and recognizing that's the place that holds parts of ourselves that we've abandoned or exiled. And how do we come into such a great relationship with it that we're not afraid of what we might have hidden down there and bring it home to a place of wholeness, or working with the teachings of the upper world and how do we connect with that highest potential within ourselves. And then the bigger question, why does it all matter? Right? How can we put that together in a way that actually can make sense in our lives? And so, space for a lot of practice, Lakshmi, and each person taking that time to discern for themselves, what does this mean? So it's a program that sources a lot of teachings from core shamanism. And I've spent over 20 years studying with indigenous teachers in Peru, as well as my own initial foundation was in the Celtic pagan ancestry of my ancestors. We still have to discern for ourselves what the relationship means because we all belong here and we're all part of the land and we all actually know within ourselves how to find agency and authority when we're quiet enough to listen and cultivate presence.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, how does this happen? How long is the course? Can you talk a little bit about the process of what actually happens in this course?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've certainly recognized in myself through the years is that I have a real direct approach, a no bullshit approach to showing up for ourselves. So it's certainly for people who really are interested in doing their own soul healing work, have that willingness to go in full accountability, full responsibility for self, and then discovery of how can one open even further to what that means in this life as a human in this time and age. And so the course itself is 10 days in person, and then the rest is online over the course of the following 11 months with 4 in person or on Zoom classes and then small group work as well. And so there's modules that are handed out over the course of the year to continue to create connection and teachings.
Is it for somebody who's learning how to hold space for other people, or is it for somebody who wants to journey for themselves? You know,
Yeah. I have both enrolled in the program. And so certainly there are 2 plant medicine ceremonies in the program. And so plant medicine, working with grandmother psilocybin, is one of the ways that we help to support our ability for direct revelation, to connect with that realm of spirit. And we can also learn how to do that through core shamanic journeying. And so both of those tools are used to help each individual recognize their capacity for direct revelation, which is a really important piece. And for some people, they're then using that skill that they're cultivating to support others in a private practice. And some are using that for their own healing and to bring balance into their lives. But the foundational teachings are working with the cycle teachings of the East, the South, the West, the North, the life, death, rebirth cycles. What do they mean in the greater scheme of who we are? And how can we recognize that our relationship with them has power in our life? And for example, with the West direction, if we find ourselves continuously challenged in facing fear and letting go and allowing for grief to move through us, the West is the place of the setting sun. we get to feel, why does that matter? Why does it matter if I can bring myself into relationship with the West? I can do this on a day-to-day basis when I notice the feelings in my body and maybe the anxiety that shows up in the body also is connected to the need to surrender, the recognition or awareness that there's contraction around letting go. The West represents the fall direction as well. So there can be a sense of that going inwards in the fall. What does this mean for me? There can be anxiety around that. So, how do we build relationship with that? This includes connecting with your own spirit guide that comes from the West direction and learning how to be in communication with the spirit guides that work with you in such a way that there's practical relevance in your day to day life. And so, using the West direction as an example, one of the ones I work with in the West is the raven. And the raven has showed up for me time and time again through the years to remind me that I can fly into the dark and I can find the gold in the dark, even if there's great resistance in that feeling. If I can take a breath and recognize that support, then I can notice how in my day to day life I am resistant to endings, to letting go, to not being in control.
Right.
Because the West direction is when we're not in control. We have to say, okay, it's not up to me anymore. I have to let this go. And then we move into the north, which is the place of the void, the unknown, the great discomfort of not knowing what is next. How do we be in that space of uncertainty in our lives without putting something in really quick, without needing to fill it in order for it to mean something? Can we
I think
actually hold space for nothing?
I think that's really significant with people who are going through addiction or ending their addiction with ibogaine or something like that. Something that was being blocked or filled up. And if you now are not doing that anymore, it's going to bring up those feelings. And how do you navigate through those feelings in that space? And that's kind of what you're talking about, these archetypal
Exactly.
concepts, and how do you use them for your own release, right? And releasing, you're right, it's so hard,
Yeah.
especially when you have trauma. There's a kind of mind control going on inside yourself. I know this from personal, that you're holding on to stuff as a way to manage.
Listen, we don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. And we all have stories about what that means. And the fact is that some of that medicine in the North is, how do we feel safe in our bodies? How do we feel safe in our bodies that we can be with what's uncomfortable? We cannot have the answer yet. We cannot know what's next. And the North direction also represents the winter time. And so if you think the winter being the coldest and darkest time is also the time when the light is born anew. That paradox, that yin and the yang is always there. And
Yeah.
it's the time of midnight, if we're looking at a daily cycle teaching, right? That time of that great unknown. Can we be with it, sit with it, commune with it without needing to make it different? And when we do that, something naturally changes. But when we're trying to control it or fill it or make it be anything different from what it is, then we miss that opportunity to breathe and to pause and to actually feel the wisdom that I think is what most of us are seeking, is finding that sense of peace in the nothing.
In yourself. It's a very yin thing. The things you're talking about are the part that is, especially with Western culture, is not so natural. The letting go, the surrender, release, yin, going in, going within, and letting, like you said, letting yourself not know something and just be with that uncertainty. It's so
Yeah.
hard to do. And yet, that's the very thing that's needed.
That's what we need. And nature heals us. We often keep ourselves so busy throughout our day with whatever our brain tells us is the most important things that we need to be doing. And yet, when we have time outside on the land, something changes inside of us. And so, certainly, that's why I teach in locations where there's lots of space for each person to be able to cultivate their own sense of communion and connection. We
Oh,
need to
yes.
listen and we need to feel the technology that's available from the land. That's how we find our relationship with source or God or our maker, is when this is quiet enough
Yeah.
that we can lean in and recognize that as humans, when we're caught and stuck in the cycles. The cycle teachings are not who we are, but they're part of the human experience. So if we can recognize the places where we're stuck in the wheel, we can do our work around that and then allow for that flow of life to move through us and embrace our aliveness in such a deeper way. Whereas if we are living in fear or shadow, of letting go, of allowing for uncertainty. Sometimes it can be for someone of really showing up. They're afraid of the brightest aspect of themselves, which is in the South. So we all have ways that we get stuck and trapped, and then we step out of being alive. So the program is really intentional for how can we embrace our aliveness to such a fuller capacity and then bring it into the world.
I resonate with what you're saying. Just even getting away from your normal context, being going somewhere,
Yeah.
being in a safe space, being able to journey in nature, all of those things are going to just help someone to unravel or unwind a little bit. And the world is very demanding right now. Very
Yeah, there
demanding.
is so much intensity in the world right now. And so just feeling the wind on your skin and hearing the sound of the drum and smelling some smudge or incense and taking that space to really go in. And I think it's that place of letting ourselves be curious, letting ourselves not have the answers, but feel into them with the felt sense. So this is why it relates so much to plant medicine, is that we're learning to really enhance that ability to feel with our felt sense and to allow for that information to mean something instead of just what we take in with our eyes and then analyze into and compartmentalize into our understanding of reality. What if what we're feeling is coming at us in such a sensory way, and we can intuitively put those pieces together to expand our recognition or our remembering of who we are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's we all have different ways that we're called to come into communion. And the more that we listen to those calls, we're going to change this world that we're seeing around us.
Okay.
And people have asked me through the years, because I've taught shamanism in one level or the other for over 20 years, and why do I still use the word shaman? Because often people will use animistic or just earth teachings or and I'll say why. Because when I was that young woman, and you've interviewed me and talked about my book, and I was looking to make peace with the person who killed my mother, I knew I needed shamanic teachings. I knew there was something in that word that spiritual teacher didn't have, that guru master, that for me at that time, I needed to know that it was someone who could go into the dark with
Into the
love,
dark. Into the
to
dark.
go into the
That's the,
dark.
it means someone who can see in the dark, who can go into the
Yes. And so we need to be able to see in the dark within ourselves. And again, on our planet, there's so much avoidance happening right now and righteousness that's creating positioning to that is so harmful in coming to a long-term outcome that's healthy for all of us humans. And so we got to see in the dark and look at our own stuff
well,
and own claim.
that's the classic shamanic initiation is when the shaman gets sick and has to heal himself or herself. And so that's like really what you're saying, what you're teaching people how to do that, correct?
Yes, and that was certainly what I needed and was looking for, and what was true for me going back 20 years and learning to face and then unexpectedly make peace with my mother's murderer. And certainly that's the core element with all the people that I'm supporting, be it in retreats or trainings, is you are responsible for building relationship with what is in the dark of your own experience. And if you run from it, you're going to be running for your whole life. So we think about addiction and that proclivity to find the good thing in order to manage the symptoms of the pain inside. So this is a practice of how do we create relationship with it so it doesn't disarm us in our most unexpected moments and we don't feel powerless or helpless in the face of what we're afraid of. How do we build relationship with it so that we're no longer avoiding who we are,